and get started since it is 10 o'clock and I don't want to use up anybody's time more than we already are. We are so grateful for you all joining us today. We are incredibly pleased to be joined by Miss Michelle Gross, the 2026 Kentucky Teacher of the Year, also National Board Certified from Spencer County, which is not a KCSAC program, but we've had our Spencer County friends at the summit for years, so we feel like we're all buddies here. Miss Gross is going to talk to us about project-based learning for math, which is, I think, particularly useful for our population. So without using up any more of her time, I will turn it over to Miss Gross. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, Katie, and everyone who has joined. When I first was approached about this, I didn't know what KESAC was, and so I had to look it up. And I share a very similar passion for children who need extra support and guidance. I have been approved foster care um, parent, and I have my best friend has adopted three children through foster care, and then I just see the need for students who are in behavior programs and um, juvenile juvenile centers to get the extra support because they need it so much. They need it. They're the heart of where we are and what we do and what we're passionate about. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Um, can you all see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I am going to talk about project-based learning. This is my passion as a teacher, and the reason why it is because it allows for students of all abilities to have multiple entry points into the learning. And so oftentimes, especially with math, you give students one activity. And when you give them one activity, you have an entire classroom full of various abilities. And for several of you all, even various like grades and just, backgrounds and different experiences that they come. And if you give them one assignment, you may have some students who can do it quickly and they'll be bored. You can have some students who maybe right on task be able to do it. And then you have some students who struggle. And then you have some students who would not even start because because it's such a struggle for them. And so I learned that in like when I first started teaching, that was kind of what I was noticing is like I didn't want to just teach to the middle, just teach to one group. I wanted to be able to engage all of my students. And so that's when I don't necessarily think back then it was called PBL or anything. There wasn't like necessarily a name to it, or if it was, I didn't know it yet. And so, but I just noticed like when I reflect on my career as not my career as a teacher, but also my career as a student, I go back and think about the things that I remembered. I remembered the projects. I didn't remember the worksheets. I remembered what the worksheets looked like because mine were purple and they were going through a ditto machine. But I do remember like the projects that we did and the connections that I made by learning the projects. And so that's what inspired me to develop my classroom the way I develop it. Now, yes, we still do practice activities. That's an absolute must. I cannot do an entire year every single day walking in being a huge project because, for a couple reasons. One, it's extremely overwhelming. And two, students need a balance. They need a balance of both practice work and then also the ability to showcase their learning. So, what you're going to see today is just what my classroom looks like from a glance, the projects that we do. And as all teachers do, we create like learning targets. And so hopefully through this, we can create an engaging project that would work for multiple grade levels and have multiple entry points. But honestly, here's my goal for you all. I have my goal is that you leave with one idea that inspires you, that you have two tools that you can walk away with, and that I answer three of the questions that you have. And so feel free to ask questions if you want to put them in the chat and we can answer them later. Or if you need, if you've got something pressing that you need to answer, be answered right away, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. But let's go ahead and go through a few of the ideas that I have. So projects at a glance. Um, I start the year off in my classroom with the recipe project. And for my kids, they are choosing a recipe that they want to choose. And there's so many connections for this: fractions, ratios, proportions, unit rates. It can go, as far down as like fourth grade all the way up to high school level. And then we move into, in seventh grade, we move into more numbers and operations. And so we do meal at a math cafe. We have some budgeting going on, some using decimals, tax tips with percents. And then after that, after Christmas break, we do a huge dream house project. And it's what my kids are doing. And I'm going to spend the bulk of my time talking about our dream house project and the ways that we bring our community in, bring in experts in the field, and how the dream house project has evolved. After that, we get into, after our geometry unit, we get into our statistics unit. And so I do quite a bit of surveys, but allow the students to have choice in what they want to survey, what they want to pick as their claim, and what they choose to explore. And then we end end the year in seventh grade with a probability carnival, where the students talk about the likeliness of events that happen. We bring in some back in statistics. The students develop a probability model, and then we have a huge game day where the kids are playing each other's games and enjoying it. I'm going to also talk about student created games, student created infographics, and student created videos. And these are things that I do throughout the year to kind of keep the kids engaged, and also them reflecting on their learning and teaching others. So here's a little bit about what the Ratios Recipe Project looks like. Um, again, it's the very beginning of the school year. It's the hook for me. It's what hooks my kids into my classroom in my world of teaching. You'll see two teachers on here because my partner teacher, she's the other seventh grade math teacher. She does this, and I will tell you, like, having somebody that we can bounce ideas off of each other is so valuable. And so it helps to have somebody, who can you can work with when you're creating your projects. And so on Monday, the students choose their recipe. I allow them to bring a recipe from home. They can Google a favorite recipe. And so again, like, multiple entry points. Not all kids have a recipe box at home. Not all kids have those resources at home. And so I allow them to choose what recipe they want. And several of them will just go straight to like Google and look up, chocolate chip cookies or something that they can do. And then I have expectations. And so for all of my projects, I have a rubric. And so the rubric is what's the basic requirements for everybody. However, in that rubric, it doesn't, I allow for so much creativity to come in. The students get to choose what recipe they want to do. They get to, you'll see on Wednesday, they go shopping for their ingredients. Or Thursday, they go shopping for their ingredients. And so I have them go to Kroger and I let them choose what they want to buy. So I had a kid a couple of years ago buy olive oil, and the olive oil was like $55. And I'm like, you could buy olive oil for $7, but that's okay. You bought $55 olive oil, that's totally fine. And so it's those real world connections. And so I even see this project being used at a younger grade level if you are wanting to reinforce decimals, going shopping for something. And so you're not having to necessarily go into the store, although that's a really cool project in and of itself, but they could go online and they could shop at the grocery store and they could develop a budget for it. And so then we allow, again, creativity. We allow, we call them aspire to do's, for bonus credit, whatever you want. And so for our aspire to do, we allowed the kids to create the food, make the food, and they could serve it to their families and take a picture of it, or they could bring it into class. I could even see if your school had a cafeteria that you had access to certain things, or maybe a stove. Like we have a classroom that well, we have like microwaves and that kind of stuff, so we don't have access to like stoves and other than our cafeteria, and our kids couldn't go in. But if you had that, you could have the kids like actually cooking and creating. So there's lots of opportunities there for that. So that's how we hook our students in. We get them excited about doing projects, and from there, that hook, we move into hard. So ratios, proportions, percents is a very hard concept for seventh graders to understand. It's a hard concept like taxes and tips and stuff. That's a hard concept for adults to understand. So when we get into the hard stuff, um, we that's why we bring in those projects to get the kids hooked and like reinforce like you can do these hard things, and then we reiterate we've got another project coming, we've got this, and I'll say, hey, we've got Mill and Math Cafe coming up, and so then it's like they have something to look forward to. So moving on to Mill and Math Cafe. One of my favorite, I love this project for multiple reasons. It allows the kids to sit together and have a dining experience. Now, when you see this video, it is not a true dining experience. How it's fun. Um, this video is kind of funny because it was taken on Halloween, so you'll see my kids dressed up. And it was done by Spectrum News, and it was right after I had been announced Kentucky Teacher of the Year, and they wanted to come in and just see what my classroom looked like, and it just happened to be Mill at a Math Cafe Day. So rather than me tell you, let's take a look into my classroom. Katie, let me know if you can not hear it.
Today, Michelle Gross's job looks a little different.
Dr. Pepper. All right, I'll be right back with yours.
She's not standing at the front of a classroom with a marker in hand, teaching from the whiteboard.
Sweet or unsweet? Sweet, and for you?
Instead, she's taking orders. For one day only, her classroom transforms into a restaurant where she's a server.
And on your cheeseburger, what would you like on it? Pickles, okay.
And her students are the diners. But you won't find any dine and dashers here. The kids are responsible for every calculation, from the cost of their meal to the tax and tip. It's Gross's approach in action.
Having students to see the real world in what they're learning and what they're learning in the real world.
Around here, Gross is known for her signature projects like the annual Dream Homeorama, where students build and design 3D home models and pitch them to architects and designers. Whether they're cracking codes in a math escape room, building their own games for the annual probability carnival, or surveying their classmates, her students are always getting up to something. Sure, it looks like fun, but she says the real magic happens in sticking with her kids when the math gets hard and helping them push through.
If I set the expectation high, I know that all students will rise to the level of expectation. And then we celebrate the wins and successes as we go.
So when Gross hangs up her server apron at the end of the period,
Here are your drinks, boys. Sorry, I can't afford real drinks.
and becomes the Kentucky Teacher of the Year again, it isn't what she's most proud of. It's seeing her former students out in the real world, using the skills they learned right here.
It's not about me. I represent my community. I represent my school. I represent my students. I represent the teachers who come in every single day, who work as hard as they possibly can, and don't receive accolades and recognition.
Showing that our classroom is always the main course. Reporting in Spencer County, I'm Julia Nervais Mendia, Spectrum News. Today, Michelle Gross is...
Sorry, guys. So, let me go back. Okay. So on this particular one, I said in the interview that I set the expectation high and students will rise. And let me rephrase that, because the level of expectation, it doesn't necessarily, and I do set the bar high for my students, but I also understand the diversity of my learners. And so for one student rising here, but their way, that to me is a success. And I want to celebrate those successes and those wins along the way. And so, like the project that we're currently doing, the Dream House project, I had a kid, bring me something that just, it didn't look great. But this is a kid that anytime there's work to be done, um, the kid will say, "Can I go to the restroom?" They want to avoid the work. And so when this work got hard, I watched this kid head down, working, 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 working. And so I was able to respond with, oh, you've put a lot of work into this. Now, let's grab a ruler and let's clean these lines up. Let's do a few things and kind of give them a couple little help to kind of push them to the next, to the next level. And so when I say I set the bar high, I do set the bar high, but I want to celebrate the wins and successes of my students where they are. Okay, so perfect. Now, can you all see Dream House Project? Okay, perfect. All right, so the Dream House Project is the project that we're currently in. It is my favorite. It's kind of my baby. I was struggling to teach geometry. It's one of those things like I'm an algebra girl, and so I'm like step by step by step. And so when it came to geometry, it was a lot of spatial reasoning, thinking things through, and it was something that early on in my teaching, it was like, how do I teach kids to think spatially? And a lot of it is them practicing thinking spatially, working through it. And so the Dream House developed out of that. I'm going to show you another video, but before I do, I wanted to show you like the rubric that I have. Again, thinking like setting the expectation high, what the students are required to do. I have them um, have their scale correct. And so I'm constantly checking to make sure that they have a correct scale because that's the important part is when they're drawing it. I also want to make sure they draw their blueprints to scale and then they list like the cost of their home, their land size, the features of their home and that kind of thing. They do a slideshow and I'll show you that in just a minute. And then they focus on the math that they use because I want them to reflect. A lot of times you're going to hear in the video, a girl was like, I didn't realize in the beginning like how much math was actually used in this project. And then they talk about like all of the math that was used. And then I give them aspire to do opportunities. I ask all of my students to present, and then I give them a bonus point for presenting. So I'm like, I want you to present. This is hard. And then at this point in there, they're not presenting to adults. So you'll see in the video them presenting to adults. I give them a practice opportunity to present and not stand up in front of their peers, but like gallery walk style, that it's a little bit more comfortable for them, and then getting them more comfortable speaking. And then I ask them to apply for our Dream Home-orama, and that's when our adults come in. And then if they create a 3D model, which a lot of them do, that can be digital or it can be physical, I give them a bonus opportunity there as well. So let's watch this video. And I'm going to, because you all can't hear the music, so I'm going to skip a bit ahead.
Excited to see so many of the students just all in. And not only did they do it, they did it really, really well. Blueprints are the perfect thing. And a lot of times worksheets will even go with blueprint, but I honestly didn't know like where to get started because it did seem like overwhelming. Project-based learning can feel a little bit overwhelming in the beginning. So I found a resource that I purchased to get me started. And that had the students calculating the area and the perimeter of different floor plans in like apartments. It also had them looking at like kind of putting on their building inspector hat and looking at the kitchen design for like, you can't have the refrigerator next to the sink. You have to have counter space in between. This year, we featured the Dream Home-orama, where we had the best of home showing, where students applied to present. The other new feature that has been evolving over the course of a few years is the 3D model. We don't require our students to create a 3D model. We have them create their floor plans, but a lot of the things that you saw today, Minecraft and the Roblox and that kind of stuff, that was something that students chose to do. Yes, it is a scale drawing project, but there's so many different things that they're making, connections that they're making. The students are calculating mean because in order to appraise their house, They went to Zillow or Realtor.com and looked at comps in the area and averaged those to figure out what the approximate value of their house would be. So there's just so much math involved. And each year we just kind of add a little.
I like to build things. I like to experiment with things and see how it would work in real life instead of doing it on a screen all the time. So when I first heard about it, I was like, yes, right? I was so excited, but I didn't understand it that much. Like, I've always loved math, but I didn't understand how this would become math. Like, I was like, wait, why are we building a house? Like, because that's something like you would like do in science or something. For me, I'm an art person, so like I like to make it creative, not just write it down on a piece of paper and be done with it. Especially with this, it helped me because I could learn math by converting everything and still getting to do it my own way.
So I walked into class, sat down, then I heard we're building a project. I was just thinking about that all day until I got home. And I think I started working on it when I got home. And this is actually my third time I did it. It was like all the other times, it kind of looked like glue was dripping out of the sides and all that kind of stuff. So first I planned it out in my head, and then I'd put it on a 4-pointer, start working on this. Start working on both of these basically at the same time. And I built all of this, stuff at my house, and I built all of this at school. So usually I'm like kind of bored when I go home, go outside and play. But this was real fun because like I love building and that kind of stuff. Like as soon as I heard it, I was so excited to do it. So excited. Like on my NTI day and my like free day, I worked on the middle floor for a great smart while.
When I was using Tinkercad to build our projects, it was like 3D imaging software that we did to do 3D printing things. And I kind of wanted to carry the knowledge I had of that from the previous experiences to make something. I like all the tiny details you can add inside of it, like the things that you can build yourself.
I was glad to show off my house. Stressful and fun because like also I got kind of thirsty a lot. Had to go to the bathroom. We made a little sign, put up, whistle if you need me.
They were presenting and they were presenting multiple times to multiple people, and they got more comfortable doing it. So it taught public speaking skills for them. They also had to think about things. There were realtors that were asking them really good questions. A mortgage broker was walking around, and I was hearing some of the questions that she was asking them about the cost of their house and can they afford to live in their house and what kind of job are they going to have. And so by asking those questions, those students are thinking even deeper.
We get to do projects, but like the Homerama was like probably like one of the most funnest projects ever because you'll get immediate feedback from people that work in that field, like realtors, like electricians, like anyone that works with houses or anything like that. You get feedback immediately and you can learn from it. I feel like this could help someone that does not like math, because if you don't like math because of all the worksheets, word problems and all that stuff, this could help you because you can do really whatever you want.
All right. So that, let's see. There we go. As you can tell, I'm super passionate about this project. And this project is like 10 years in the making. We started out very small, but each year it has grown. And the Dream House project at Spencer County Middle School has almost become an institution in itself. I sent out the other day the invites to like I have a spreadsheet of emails, kind of like you said, Katie, like once you're on that spreadsheet, you you don't go off. And that's kind of the same way with this. Like I invite them every year and they invite more people and they come in. And that at some point in my classroom, my students stop thinking like, what's my grade? Because that's a lot of times what happens is kids think about what their grade is and they start thinking, what's my future? And that's the goal for all teachers is we want our kids to think about what's my future? What is that? What does it look like? And I feel like the Dream House project at any level, like even when they're young, you could have them looking on, like especially if you're teaching averaging costs of homes, like in fifth and sixth grade, you could go onto Zillow or Realtor.com and look at homes, and they could go pick any place in the United States that they want to live, and they could look at homes, or they could even make comparisons. Like if you were doing, like you could even do globally, like what does this look like across the, across the world? And so there's so many connections that can be made at different grade levels, even different subject areas. And so I wanted to show you what my students like. I've come up with a very, very basic um, project slideshow for the kids, and the kids make it their own. I wish I had linked like one of the students' projects, but they just put in their location where they want to live, and that gets them thinking about like where would I like to live in my future. They put a picture of the outside of their home. I have them go to houseplans.com and homeplans.com. They're both similar. And this is where they get their blueprints. Because when you're asking kids to design and create and you don't give them guidance, then it's like they could draw a rectangle and then like just split it up. And so thinking like where would closets go? These are things that kids are not necessarily thinking about, but getting to think about. And then I have them list their features. And then this is the computer blueprints where they would have gotten from houseplans.com or homeplans.com. And then they do hand-drawn blueprints. And this is what my kids are working on this week. They are drawing out, and this is not easy. I watch kids like have blocks like what it's not quite matching up, and we talk about those challenges. And so a couple of the challenges that they talked about this week is first figuring out what they want their scale to be, because you're looking at this blueprint paper. It's not the 8.5 by 11, it's the larger one. And so I have them counting, and they're like, okay, well, it's 44 blocks by 68 blocks. And so if they did a fourth of an inch, which is one of those blocks, they could have gotten 44 feet by 68 feet. And then a lot of them are like looking at the dimensions of theirs and like, wait, that's more. What do I need to do here? And so then it's about like, well, could we half it? Could we do an eighth of an inch equals 1 square foot and go that route? Or could we double the size of our paper, and instead of having a 44 by 68, we have 88 by 68. And so it's problem solving. There's a lot of problem solving involved in there. Some other challenges that the kids run into is when they're looking on houseplans.com, some rooms are listed with dimensions and others are not. And so then they're having to estimate, like, okay, well, my bedroom is this, is 25 by 20. And this room, it looks a little bit larger. What is it going to be in comparison? So they have to do a lot of estimating skills in here. There's so much learning involved in the Dream House project. And then finally, like that communication piece of it, many students struggle to convey their thoughts to adults. And if I were to say, if I were to come in at the very beginning of the year and be like, hey, you're going to present to 50 adults, they'd be like, no, I'm not. But getting them prepared for that, building them up for it, the work that they're doing right now, they're proud of it and they want to showcase it. And then we give them a chance to dream. So we give them a dream board, and then they get to like look at what the living room, what their living room to look like, their kitchen, their bedroom. And then that's the hook for some of the kids. Some of the kids struggle with the drawing it out piece, but then they'll give me 27 slides of what they want the interior design to look like. And we talk about like interior design is a real career. It's a great career, but you also have to have math skills, spatial reasoning to be able to do it. So anyway, like I said, I was going to spend the bulk of mine on the Dream House project because it is something that I am so proud of. My kids, how they've raised the bar every year. The video you saw was 2 years ago, And last year, we, instead of doing it in the hallway, we moved it to the library. It was a little bit more spaced out. And so it was great. And then this year we're going to stay in the library, and we've got more people coming in. We've got some media coming in. Um, One thing about being Kentucky Teacher of the Year, it draws a little bit of attention. And so I've got some people who are wanting to come in. And so I'm very, very, very proud to show off my kids. And so if any of you all are interested in coming in and checking out the Dream Homeorama, please let me know. I would love for you to come in, and you can provide feedback to my kids, but then also get ideas for yourself. In ways that you could use a project or a project similar to that. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the data analysis project. And this is very widespread among grade levels. You could do this with pretty much any grade level. In fact, last night I took a survey for a kid, I think she's in third grade. And her survey was testing her hypothesis in science. And it was somebody that lived, several states away from me. And he was just saying, my daughter needs some help. And so this is a great project to do to get the kids excited. And so let me share. Actually, first, um, the for the data analysis project in seventh grade math, the students are required to compare two populations, discussing differences of their measures of center and measures of variability. So that's like the heart of the seventh grade. And so the way we do the project is we have the kids choose a topic of their choice, any topic they want to, something that they're passionate about. So I've got this one, they wanted to do online shopping. This kid is really into Dungeons and Dragons and wanted to do dice preferences. This kid is really into snacks and wanted to do favorite flavors of chips. This kid is country as country. In fact, this is the kid that did the Roblox video in the video that you saw. He did a fantastic job, and he thinks that people living in the city are just completely different from him. And this this one is books versus movies, and this kid loves to read. And then this one's about sports. This kid is very much into basketball. He is a basketball player. And so they got to choose their topic. Everybody chose something that was passion that they were passionate about. And then they're all required to create a statistical question. What do you want to learn? And we talk about what a statistical question looks like. And then from their question, we have them develop a claim. And we talk about how claim in math and statistics is different and similar to claims in language arts. And so generally they think about language arts claim, this is my claim and I've got to prove it to be true. Well, in statistics you can make a claim and it can absolutely be false, and you're like, the kids were like, uh-oh, this is false. What am I going to do to make it true? Like, no, 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 no. No, this is where we're learning. In statistics, most of our most of our claims are false in statistics. It's how we learn. It's how we grow. We learn more from it, and then we are able to pivot. And so we talk about what statistical questions and claims, and then we have the kids choose two populations. And so, like, I have teens versus adults here, sixth graders versus seventh and eighth graders, um, new gamers versus experienced gamers, adults versus kids, males versus females, and teenage males versus adult males. And so they get to choose their topic, they get to choose their populations, but then the requirements that they have to do. All of my students are required to create a survey or create a statistical process, because they are able to conduct an experiment if they want to. And some kids choose to conduct an experiment. I had one with like sidewalk chalk a few years ago. They did like Crayola versus Rose Art versus one other brand, and is Crayola really superior? And so I thought that was kind of a neat, project to do. And so we let them choose, and then all of them, let me pull this up. All of the students are required to have a sample size of at least 25 each. And so this one, they sampled 25 adults and 136 teenagers, probably because when it was going out, like all the teenagers were taking it. All of the students are required to put their survey questions, whatever their questions are, and how did it help support their claim, and then talk about biases in their learning. And then every student is required to create a frequency table where they choose one of their questions that would best serve the frequency table and to put it out there. Most of my students choose to do like a Google form. We used to do SurveyMonkey. It just Google Forms have evolved to be like the easiest route to create surveys for. All of the students have to do a comparative bar graph, and we talk about the difference between bar graphs that they learned when they were in fourth grade and fifth grade versus, comparative bar graphs and what that looks like. All of the students are required to create a box plot because in seventh grade, we really focus on numerical data, measures of center, mean, median, mode, mean absolute deviation, and interquartile range. And so we spend quite a bit of time creating our box plots, using our numerical data, and then reading them, like looking at what box plots look like. And looks like this one they did the same. I just realized the kids did the same. Like this is should be adults, it should be different, but that's okay. We'll look at another one. And then they all have to analyze their data, talk about their explaining their graphs, and then compare the measures of center and variability for each for their data. And then they analyze. And so this really, really goes deep. Um, into learning. And so there's so many multiple entry points for the kids. And I have kids who really struggle with going deep, but when it's a topic that they're passionate about, they are more likely to answer questions. You could pick any kid and you can find out what they're passionate about, and they will talk to you for hours about what they're passionate about. And so when you're getting something like this, you really want them to go deep, find something that they're passionate about, and then you can put it in like, all right, we need to find the data to support this. We need to create a graph, but it's all something that they're passionate about. And then let me give you one other example. Here we go. This one, same, completely different topic, but everything, it's still similar. They're still doing their survey questions, frequency table. They're still doing a comparative bar graph. They're still creating a box plot, analyzing their data. And so when you go back and look at these, you can click on all of them. And again, these are my students. They're seventh graders. These are not going to be perfect, nor do we expect them to be. This is how we are learning and we're growing. Um, okay, how am I doing on time? It's at 10:36. All right, the next thing I want to talk about, this is the last project that we do in the year, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we can do like mid-year to get the kids like reflecting on their learning. So we start the year fun, we end the year fun, and Probability Carnival is a great way to showcase fair game, likeliness of events, probability model, and even statistics. And so we have the kids choose whatever game they want to. We tell them they're going to do a carnival, and they get to kind of go from there. And so this is one of those things where you could have the kids working in your classroom, building, ask people for cardboard boxes. I did that last year. And so some of these projects, clearly you can see that they were done like on their own time at home. But like last year, I did a different take. I had people bring in cardboard boxes and lots of just different materials and just had the kids just create a game in class, create games. And that was so fun. It was also overwhelming because my room was completely crowded, full of cardboard boxes everywhere because I have 120 students, and just trying to figure out where everything goes can be a little bit of logistical nightmare, but it was really fun to watch the kids create and get excited. And then they got to conduct their experiments by playing their games, and they wrote their results in a probability model. And then it also helped them with the process of like especially like the Plinko game. Like a lot of times the Plinko games, they think in their head what they're going to create, and then it's not working out. Now, I had a student last year who he cannot read. He struggled so much with behavior issues, like just he's one of the students, like he goes to a resource room for behavior multiple times during the day. So you can kind of imagine like how much some of these things would be a challenge to him in class. And so I watched him on the Dream House project. Like I saw what he was doing. He was like tracing, and I was like, okay, let's see how we can get him. So we blew it up and we put the dream house, the blueprints on the window, and then I let him like trace over it and put it in there. This kid came in 3 days straight, went straight to the window and worked the entire time. It was so cool to see. And then the probability carnival, he wanted to create, and I wish, man, I wish I put a picture of his on there. He wanted to create a Plinko board, but he didn't have materials to do so. And so I was like, go look in my box of stuff. And he found the little plastic hexagon, like the little tessellations that we have. He found those little hexagon shapes. And he was like, can I use this? And I was like, absolutely. And I had a cardboard, like a cardboard poster like this, and he was taping them on. And I just watched him. It's just, he was so proud of himself and he was so proud of his project. And I was so proud of him because, like, all kids can do something. And that's the cool thing about projects is that all kids can do something. It may not all look the same. They may not all be this, you know, really, really amazing, project that you could like market today, but you watch the kids put their effort in, their time, and they're proud of it. And we celebrate that. And then it was so cool when he was set up, like the kids were running around, they were wanting to play his game. And he felt part of the group, that he created something that people wanted to play. And it was just it was a really fun, great experience for me. So that's a probability carnival. It's how I end my year. It's a fun day for the kids. You know how like we're always trying to figure out like at the end, like what are some things that we can do? Like for us in my school, we had eighth graders who were testing and we had to be quiet in the building, but we were on the opposite side of the building. So we didn't have to be that quiet, but we couldn't be out in the building. So we were stuck in our classroom. So this was a great opportunity for the kids to work and do something fun and be creative. All right, so other things throughout the year. I have my students create games, create math games. The they've used Canva. My students have used like Google Slides to create games. I do an escape room with the kids. I actually found the escape room off of Teachers Pay Teachers. There's a ton of escape rooms out there that you can do. You can also create your own. For example, here's one where you don't have to they just answer a question, and then whatever the answer is, take the first digit of their answer. That's their first digit. Then you move on to puzzle two. You get their second digit, your third digit, your fourth digit, and then you put in your code and it'll tell you if you got it right or wrong. And so it's very simple. This could take a few minutes or it could take multiple. It's just kind of something that you can do with the students or that the students can create. I create in the beginning and then I let the students create games come from that. And I've got a class right now that's their project right now, is that they're creating games that we can use. And they're doing really good. And it can be a physical model or it can be a digital game. And then you probably are familiar with some of the online resources, but if you are not, check out Blookit or Wayground, which is formerly Quizzes. Those have a wealth of math games, all kinds of games, honestly, on there. They're teacher created, student created. You can create some yourself. You can go, like if you go to Blookit, you can type in whatever topic you're doing. Maybe you want something on area and perimeter. You can go in there and then there's games. And the kids can play these games for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. You get to choose how long you want your kids to play the games, and it's a good way to review. And so it's a great activity to do, like if you have an extra few minutes of time and you want the kids to be engaged and you want them to play, or you can have the kids go on there and create their own games. And they love doing that. I also have my students create infographics. Here's a few examples. The taking what they're learning and reflecting on it. Yes, you can create an assessment, but we all know that, and I was a terrible test taker. If could tell you, like showcase you what I know, I would have done a really good job. But if I had to take a test on what I know, I don't know, I just get into my head. I struggle. And so, I know that all kids aren't great test takers. Some kids are, but some kids need to showcase what they're learning in another way. And so I'll have kids create infographics. So this kid was up here, did an infographic. It was a series of slideshows, or a slide deck on how to find the least common multiple. I had a kid create a video infographic on probability and how it works. I had a kid do how to turn word problems into algebra equations. And this one down here, I can't take credit for, neither can my students. This one I found on Canva, and I actually put it on there because if you click on the Canva link and you go to infographics, it brings up a ton of infographics to get you started. It's also something really cool, like if you are teaching a math concept and you want to have an infographic yourself, you can start there and you can find a wealth of resources for your students. But then also allowing the students to create the infographics, show them like, here you can go on Canva. Yes, this is on here. Don't just copy this, but take this and put your own information in. And it gets kids reflecting on what they're learning. And the other thing that I have my students do is create videos and websites to showcase their learning. And so this one right here at the beginning of the school year, my students were struggling with a particular concept on proportions. And these two girls right here, they were the only ones like really, really getting it. And so I took advantage of them and I was of their expertise. And I was like, hey, would you all be willing to create a video going over this particular concept? And not only did they do it, they loved it. In fact, one of them emailed me back and she's like, do you have any more videos that I can make? And so it was like taking advantage of like them doing getting excited about it. And then this is kind of how like I'm like, ooh, you would be a great teacher. Have you thought about a career in teaching? Like you would, like think about that as being a potential career. So now I'm like really kind of investing in like, hey, I can't wait to teach with you in a few years when you get out of college. And so that really kind of was exciting to me is to see like kids and you see their potential and see their ability and like start now. Like you have an opportunity to teach to others. So I have, let's see, this video. Oh, looks like I need to sign in. I don't know if you'll not be able to see it with your signing in, but anyway, it's not a big deal if you can't see it. It does have a transcript available with it, but it's the girls.
My name is Mrs. Kennedy, and today we're going to be helping you guys with Lesson 5 Mastery Check. So we've heard that you guys are doing really, really good with the CLP, but you're having just a little bit of trouble with the reciprocals. Yes. So, reciprocals, that's a pretty big word, and we don't know if you guys know what that means exactly. So a reciprocal is flipping it. So let's start with an example of a fraction. So if I have 2/3 as my original fraction, what would the reciprocal to that be? 3/2, so 3/2. Yes. And then you can also do it as an equation. So let's say I had, I don't know, 800 divided by 5. What would the reciprocal equation be? 5 divided by 800. Yes, it's
So that is an example of students just taking one particular concept and them creating a video sharing, sharing their expertise on it. And then This one is another video that you can look on fractions. That was a more generalized video. This was a student from, I've got a class called the Academy, and it's students who are math, science, social studies, language arts, and arts and humanities. They all choose a topic that they're passionate about. These are kind of more gifted kids, academic team type kids. And so this particular student did a lesson on fractions that we ended up, we're going to share with the younger grades. And then creating websites. Google Sites are easy to create. They're also fun. In Kentucky, we have the defenses of our learning. In JCPS, they call it the backpack. In Spencer County, they call it a senior, it's their senior project, their learning defense. Well, we also in eighth grade, our eighth graders do a learning defense. And so many of them create websites to showcase all that they're learning. And so to get my students ready for it, I have them practice by making websites. And so this particular student was my son. He's in sixth grade this year. He created this website on how to classify numbers because I noticed that students were having trouble with like what natural whole numbers, integers, rational numbers, and irrational numbers were. So he made this website on what each of them were and had a little test your knowledge for them. And then he had like some videos that you could no, he had some videos somewhere. Yeah, videos for more information on there. So this is a great way for students to showcase their learning, but then also digging deeper. It doesn't necessarily have to be them showcasing all that they know, because when my son was doing this, he was like, I need a little help. And I'm like, well, go find that. Go find a video that works really well for that. And then you plug that in as information. And so he learned a lot while he was creating this video. Same thing with this particular student. This student has a reading disability, and he's passionate about math. And so he created this website all about fractions. And he even, it was so sweet. Like he did like a little overview of it, talked about an about me that he loves. I'm a math loving teacher. And so this is a good opportunity for the kids to showcase their learning. And so that is my project-based learning. And again, I know it seems a little overwhelming, but I've been teaching for 22 years. And so I keep adding a little bit as I go along. It is not something that it's like all in, because I know how overwhelming that can be. But I wanted to take a moment for you to reflect. Like, my goals for your hour were that you walk away with one idea that inspires you. So if you will right now think about something that you're inspired by that you would like to try, or something that you're inspired by that you would like to share with somebody else and say, hey, check this resource out. Maybe this is something that you can try. So if you will think about one idea that inspires you. And then 2 tools. I know I shared lots and lots of resources on here, but again, it can be very overwhelming. So what are 2 practical tools that you could walk away with today? Like something that if you're teaching, like something that you could use tomorrow in your classroom or use next week as you're planning, or something that you're like, I've never even known that existed. I'm gonna click that link and check it out some more. And then finally, sometimes professional developments can leave more questions than they do answers. But I hope that I answered any questions that you have. But I would love to, in the last few minutes that we have, answer any questions that you may still be thinking about.
Ronnie actually asked a couple questions in the chat. I don't know if
Okay. I did not see the chat, but let me unshare, and that way I can see. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. See. Oh, awesome. Well, and please, Ronnie, tell your daughter's teacher, like give her my email address. I love to collaborate with teachers. It's one of my favorite things to do. when you ask them to list the math concepts, do you give them a list to choose from? Oh, that's a good question. So I will bring that slide up in one day, and rather than me say, hey, this is the math that you're learning, I will ask them, what math have you been learning through this concept? I only want to hear one math concept from five of you. And so then somebody will raise their hand and they'll share a concept, and then it'll bring up somebody else sharing another concept, and it'll bring somebody else. And then I literally am just the scribe. I'm writing it on the board. And then, so then the kids will bring up things that I wasn't even thinking of, like, yes, the scale drawing part. Yes, finding the mean of the comps in the area, but like using the ruler for like straight lines. They bring up that. I went on Amazon has it's Mr. Penn brand, and their architectural stencils. And so like it has doors, it has windows, it has furniture, um, beds, stoves, refrigerators, sinks, and they're all like they're stencils that the kids can use, and they're on 1/4 of an inch scale, and they have an 1/8 of an inch scale, and they have a 1/2 of an inch scale. And so then the kids can make like, instead of like trying to draw it in, it looks really messy. It's almost like perfect because it's a stencil that they can put in. And so they'll talk about the stencils and how having to pick that out. A lot of the kids talk about using estimation, because there's so many times, like when you're looking at blueprints, these kids aren't necessarily thinking, okay, well, this wall is going to be like a couple inches. They're just thinking from room to room. They drew a little line and they're like, oh, it didn't match up. And so then we talk about estimation and rounding, because if you've got, 12 feet 8 inches or 12 feet 10 inches, how are you going to draw that in your blueprints? Can we go ahead and round up, or do we need to round down? So there's so much math in there. In fact, my substitute right now, she's doing the project with the kids, and so she's so excited. She said that she's like, I already have 6 math things listed, and we're only on like day 3. Let's see, what other questions? Probability Carnival. Do you share past games? Yes. I always, always, always show exemplars. That's how we raise the bar. Like, I will pick the best of projects, and I'll pick good projects, but I will show the kids what it is, and then the kids are like, well, the kids now are like, bet. And so then they will check, they'll raise the bar, and then it raises the bar, and it raises the bar. And it's so funny because like I'm supposed to be on sabbatical right now, but I don't understand what sabbatical means. So I'm in my classroom a lot, and it's been fun to watch my kids, like, even when I'm not there. Like, I walk into my classroom and they are like, oh, they're so locked in and they're excited about it because it's meaningful work to them. But yes, showing them past games for ideas. Even with the statistics project, showing them past topics to inspire them. In the past few years, we've used AI tools. Like, I allow the kids to use AI to generate topics for them. In fact, we've used AI in the past to help generate questions for that. Or I'll ask them to put their questions through, and like, are my questions clear? Does this help support? Are there any other questions? So we've been able to even talk about how AI tools can be beneficial and not necessarily being used for cheating. So we've talked about that in the last couple of years as well. Yes. So Tanya, the PBL projects in content areas, but not math. That is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it, is because when I reflect back, I remember doing a ton of projects. I don't remember very many math projects. And so, but math is such a real world concept that it's like, why would we not be challenging our kids to think about how math fits into the real world and how the real world fits into math? Because ultimately, that's what they are going to be using the math that they're learning for, is things. And you hear adults say all the time, like, well, I never used divide solving for X. And I'm like, yeah, you kind of do. When you're problem solving, you are. We don't put it in as a variable, but yes, you're thinking it through. You're solving problems. You're always solving for something. And so, getting the kids to see that connection now. Let's see. Are there any other questions that were asked that I have forgotten to answer? Thank you, Sherry. Um, I appreciate you all so much for your kindness, for being here. This is like, it's something I'm excited about doing, but also just, full transparency. Um, Being Kentucky Teacher of the Year means I have to do quite a few things speaking, and I want these opportunities to learn and to grow and to develop my communication skills. And so this is a great opportunity for me to share something that I'm absolutely passionate about. And so it really helps me.
Well, we're so pleased for you to join us today. I can't tell you how interesting I found that. I really want to take your class. I mean, it looks so fun. And I have lots of opportunities coming up for you to speak to our people even more if you're willing.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love it. I would love that.
Does anybody else have any questions? Just scroll up on your chat and you can click on the evaluation link and a certificate will be sent to you automatically. And if that does not happen, just let Katie Helton know. That's me. All right. Any final remarks from anybody? All right. Well, thank you, Mrs. Gross. I am so excited to work with you further. And I have a feeling the more that we share your resources, the more our people will be reaching out to you. And I'm going to encourage them to do that. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely. Please do. Please. I love collaborating with other teachers. And that's, hopefully, like ultimately the goal is that we expand our community and like even more because when teachers are working collaboratively, they feel supported, they feel seen, they feel like the work that they're doing, like I want teachers to feel like the work that they're doing is meaningful. And when they see their, students just thriving and excited, that brings the passion to them. So that's my goal.
That's wonderful. We want that to spread all throughout our programs and beyond. So we look forward to working with you again. And everyone, thank you for joining us this morning. You all be careful and be safe in the upcoming snowpocalypse that we're going to have. And keep your eye out for more professional development opportunities. All right. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.